People were bowing. Not one person, not two. Almost everyone in the wide glass lobby of Vicky Crown Industries bent their heads at the same time. Security guards, receptionists, senior managers, even men in expensive suits. And standing in the middle of them was a woman holding a small, old bag close to her chest. Her eyes did not look at anyone, because they could not. They were cloudy and still. She was blind. And yet, the entire company looked at her the way people look at a king. At the far end of the lobby, Henry Williams stood frozen in a neat dark suit he did not even feel proud of anymore. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands started shaking, because he knew that bag. He knew that voice too. Soft, aged, careful. It was the same voice that had begged him a few weeks ago under heavy rain, saying, "Henry, my son, please don't do this." Henry's knees almost failed. How is she here?" he whispered. Then the woman took one slow step forward. A staff member rushed to hold her elbow gently, like she was precious glass. Someone announced loudly, "Please welcome our new CEO." Henry's chest squeezed. New CEO? No. No, no, no. That could not be. The woman lifted her face, and even though she was blind, it felt like she was looking straight at Henry. Then she said calmly, slowly, clearly, "Good morning, everyone." That voice hit Henry like a slap. It was his mother, Madame Victoria, the same old blind mother he had thrown out into the rain like trash. And Henry realized something terrifying. Everyone already knew who she was. Everyone, except him. And as the lobby stayed bowed, Henry took one step backward, feeling the floor spin under him, because a memory came crashing back. A memory of rain, a memory of screaming, a memory of his mother's old bag flying into the mud, and his own voice shouting the word he could never take back. Witch. Henry's breath broke, and the story of how he reached that moment began. 1 month earlier, Henry Williams was one of the most feared billionaire CEOs in Lagos. In the business world, people said his name with caution. Some admired him, some feared him, some pretended to love him because of his money. Henry's company, Williams Coast Group, was known from Lagos to Port Harcourt. He had beautiful cars, a mansion, security, staff, everything. But lately, his life had started cracking like a glass cup dropped on a hard floor. Deals began failing. A big shipment got delayed. A client who used to smile at him stopped taking his calls. Then one morning, Henry looked at his account and felt his stomach drop. Millions had gone out. It was like someone was draining him. He sat on his leather chair, sweating, staring at his phone, whispering again and again, "What is happening to me?" His assistant, Kemi, stood near the door, worried. "Sir, should I call your lawyer?" Henry shook his head sharply. "No, this is not law. This is something else." Henry did not say it out loud, but fear was eating him. Not the fear of being poor, the fear of losing control. So when someone told him about a powerful pastor who could see beyond the physical, Henry grabbed the chance like a drowning man. The pastor's name was Pastor Oho. But people whispered behind his back that he was not a real pastor. They said he was a trick man in a suit. Henry did not care. He just wanted his life back. The church was not a real church building. It was a rented hall with loud speakers and black curtains. The air smelled like perfume mixed with sweat. People shouted "Amen" like they were in a contest. Henry sat in the front. Pastor Oho wore a long white robe and a gold chain. He held a microphone like a weapon. He walked up and down, eyes half closed, acting like he was listening to invisible voices. Then he stopped suddenly. He pointed at Henry like a judge. "You," he said. Henry sat up straight. "Yes, man of God." Pastor Oho's eyes widened dramatically. "I see a strong man, a man meant to rise higher than this, but something is pulling you back." Henry's heart beat faster. "Yes, that is what is happening." Pastor Oho lowered his voice like he was sharing a secret. "It is someone close to you." Henry swallowed. "My enemies?" Pastor Oho shook his head slowly. "Not outside. Inside." The room went quiet. People leaned forward. Henry felt cold. "Who?" he whispered. Pastor Oho lifted one finger. Your mother. Henry blinked hard. My mother? The fake pastor made a sad face, like he did not want to say it. The spirit of your mother is heavy on your destiny. She is sitting on your progress. Henry's throat tightened. No, my mother is blind. She is old. Pastor Oho snapped, angry. Do not defend the witch. The word witch cut through the hall. People gasped. Henry's hands curled into fists. Pastor Oho leaned closer, voice low. She is using your star. If you don't remove her from your house, your business will die. Henry's mind spun. His mother had lived with him for years. She was quiet. She moved slowly. She always touched the wall to find her way. She prayed softly at night. Could she really be the problem? Pastor Oho lifted a small bottle of oil. If you do what I say, you will rise again. But if you keep her, you will fall. Henry stood up suddenly. His chair scraped the ground. The whole hall watched him. Henry's eyes looked wild. What should I do? Pastor Oho's lips curled slightly. Remove her. And remove anything she owns in your house. Everything. Henry nodded like a man under a spell. He dropped money on the table. A lot of money. And he drove home like his house was on fire. Madame Victoria was sitting in the living room when Henry arrived. Even though she was blind, she could tell when her son came home angry. She heard his footsteps, fast, heavy. She held her old bag on her lap like it was her only friend. Henry, she said softly. My son, you're home early. Henry did not answer. His breathing sounded rough. Madame Victoria reached out her hand, trying to touch his arm. Henry, what is wrong? Henry stepped back like her hand was poison. You are asking me what is wrong, he snapped. Madame Victoria flinched. Did I offend you? I'm sorry if… Henry cut her off. Stop acting innocent. The words shocked the room. Even the housekeeper in the corner froze. Madame Victoria's voice trembled. Henry, why are you shouting? Henry's face twisted with anger and pain. My company is collapsing. Money is leaving me. Deals are failing. And you are sitting here like a saint. Madame Victoria's lips parted. Henry, I have been praying for you. Henry laughed bitterly. Praying, or doing something else? Madame Victoria's fingers tightened around her bag. What? What do you mean? Henry walked toward her like a storm. He grabbed the old bag from her lap. Madame Victoria gasped. My bag! Henry, please! Henry opened it roughly. Inside were simple things. A small wrapper, a rosary, a worn-out photo, old documents tied together, and a small phone. Henry's eyes burned. So this is where you hide it, he hissed. Madame Victoria's face filled with fear. Hide what? Henry, please, my son, you are scaring me. Henry turned and marched toward the front door. Madame Victoria stood up quickly, hands stretched out, trying to follow. Henry, where are you taking my bag? Henry yanked the door open. Outside, the sky was already dark and angry. Rain clouds were gathering. The wind was strong. And before Madame Victoria could even step forward, Henry threw the bag outside like it was garbage. It landed on the ground with a dull thud. Madame Victoria cried out, No, Henry! She rushed to the door, barefoot, trembling. The first drops of rain started falling. Henry, she begged, voice breaking, please, that bag has my life inside. Henry's eyes were cold. You and your bag. You will leave this house today. Madame Victoria shook her head. Henry, where will I go? I am blind. Henry's jaw clenched. You should have thought of that before you started ruining my life. Madame Victoria froze. Ruining your life? Henry, I gave birth to you. I carried you. Henry shoved her shoulder, not hard enough to break her bones, but hard enough to push her out. Madame Victoria stumbled into the rain. She nearly fell. Henry, she cried. The rain began pouring harder. She turned her face up, water running down her cheeks like tears. Henry, please. My son, don't throw me away like this. Henry stepped out onto the porch, anger boiling. Witch, he shouted, you are the reason my business is dying. Madame Victoria's whole body shook. People from nearby houses began peeking, from behind gates. The security guard at the gate looked confused. The housekeeper covered her mouth. Madame Victoria's voice broke into a sob. Henry, I am your mother. Henry pointed at the gate. Go, before you finish me. Madame Victoria reached toward him, shaking. I have nowhere to go. Henry's face stayed hard. Then die outside. At least you won't die inside my house. The words landed like stones. Madame Victoria staggered, bent to pick up her bag with trembling hands. Rain soaked her grey hair. Mud covered her feet. She turned once, like she was hoping Henry would change his mind. Henry, she whispered, one day, you will remember this night. Henry slammed the door in her face. Bang! Madame Victoria stood in the rain, alone, and she began to walk, slowly, carefully, using the wall to guide herself, disappearing into the night. Inside the mansion, Henry leaned on the door, breathing fast. His phone buzzed. A message popped up from the bank. Account alert. Henry's eyes widened. His heart jumped. Was it good news? Had the curse lifted? He opened it quickly, and his face drained of color, because it wasn't money coming in. It was money going out, a huge amount, bigger than ever. Henry's hands started shaking. What? What is this? He whispered. Outside, Madame Victoria's small figure vanished into the darkness. Inside, Henry stared at his phone like it was a death sentence, and in that moment, thunder cracked in the sky, as if heaven itself had reacted. Henry's phone buzzed again, another alert, another loss. Then a strange unknown number called him. He hesitated, sweating, and picked up. A calm voice said, "Good evening. Is this Henry Williams? I'm calling about something. Your mother owns." Henry's blood ran cold. What did you say?" Henry's heart slammed against his chest. "My mother?" he asked into the phone, his voice tight. "What are you talking about?" There was a short pause on the line. Then the calm voice spoke again, slow and clear. "Sir, I'm calling on behalf of Johnson & Co. Legal Chambers. We have been trying to reach Madame Victoria for years. This number is the last contact linked to her documents." Henry swallowed hard. "Why would lawyers be looking for her?" he snapped. "She owns nothing. She's just an old blind woman." Another pause. This time the voice sounded firmer. "Sir, with respect, that is not correct." Henry's grip on the phone tightened. "What do you mean?" But before the lawyer could continue, Henry heard a knock on his door. Loud, sharp. He turned away from the phone, irritation rising. "Hold on," he said, and dropped the call. When he opened the door, rain and cold air rushed in. Standing there was his security guard, Musa, looking uneasy. "Sir," the old woman. "Your mother." Henry frowned. "What about her?" "She didn't go far," Musa said quietly. "She walked toward the abandoned house behind the old market. The one no one lives in anymore," Henry scoffed. "So? Let her stay there." Musa hesitated. "Sir, it's raining heavily." Henry's eyes hardened. "Did I stutter?" Musa bowed slightly and walked away. Henry slammed the door and leaned against it, chest rising and falling. For a brief second, an image flashed in his mind. His mother slipping in the rain, falling, calling his name. He shook his head violently. "No," he muttered. "She is the problem. Pastor Oho said so." He lifted his phone again and stared at the missed call. Then, reluctantly, he called back. Madame Victoria sat on the broken floor of the abandoned house. The roof leaked. Water dripped steadily into small puddles around her. The walls smelled of mold and dust. The windows were broken. Cold wind slipped in freely. She hugged her old bag to her chest and rocked slowly. Her clothes were soaked. Her lips trembled, but she did not curse her son. Instead, she whispered a prayer. "God, I don't understand this, but I leave everything in your hands." Her phone vibrated suddenly. Madame Victoria flinched. No one called her. No one. Her fingers searched until she found the phone inside her bag. "Hello?" she said softly. "Madame Victoria Williams," a respectful voice asked. "Yes, this is she," she replied. "Madam, my name is Mr. Daniel Johnson, your lawyer." She froze. "My lawyer," she repeated, confused. "Yes, ma," the lawyer said kindly. "I have been trying to reach you for many years." Madame Victoria shook her head slowly. "You must be mistaken. I have no lawyer." The lawyer cleared his throat. 30 years ago, madam, you bought shares in a small oil logistics company through our firm. You instructed us to hold the documents until the right time. Madame Victoria's breath caught. Her mind drifted back to when she was still young, when her husband was alive, when she sold her small business and invested quietly. I remember, she whispered. The lawyer continued, those shares have grown. Madam, your investment is now worth $10 million. Silence filled the abandoned house. Rain drummed loudly outside. Madame Victoria's hands began to shake. 10 million, she whispered. Yes, madam, the lawyer said gently, and that is why we've been searching for you. The company is ready for sale, and you are a major shareholder. Tears filled her blind eyes, not tears of pain, tears of shock. God, she whispered, so you remembered me. The lawyer spoke again. Madam, where are you currently? We need to move quickly. Madame Victoria hesitated. I am in an empty house. I was sent away today. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Sent away? The lawyer repeated. Yes, she said softly. My son asked me to leave. The lawyer went quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, firmly. Madam, listen to me carefully. You are not alone anymore. From this moment, everything changes. While Madame Victoria's life was quietly turning around, Henry's was falling apart. That same night, his phone kept buzzing. Alerts, warnings, missed calls. By morning, the truth hit him hard. A major investor had pulled out. A bank froze one of his accounts. A government contract was suspended. Henry sat in his office, staring blankly. What is happening? He whispered. His assistant rushed in, pale. Sir, we have a serious problem. Henry looked up slowly. What now? The board wants an emergency meeting. They say your leadership is under review. Henry laughed weakly. Review? I built this company. Kemi swallowed. Yes, sir, but things are bad. The meeting did not go well. Voices were raised. Accusations flew. By the end of the week, Henry was no longer the powerful CEO. He was asked to step aside. His world shrank fast. Cars were taken back. Security was reduced. Friends stopped calling. And Pastor Oho? Henry tried to reach him. The number was no longer available. Just like that, Madame Victoria was moved quietly. A clean car came for her. Warm hands helped her in. For the first time in years, she slept on a soft bed. Doctors checked her. A private nurse stayed with her. Her old bag was cleaned and returned to her gently. The lawyer handled everything. The shares were sold. The money was secured. Then the lawyer spoke of an opportunity. There is a struggling company with strong potential, he explained. It needs a new owner. Madame Victoria listened carefully. What kind of company? The lawyer smiled. A company your son knows very well. Madame Victoria was silent. Then she said softly, buy it. Henry now wore a simple suit. Not the kind he used to wear. He worked as a general manager. It was all he could get. The company had just been bought by a mysterious investor. No one knew who. Staff whispered. Security stood straighter. A new CEO was coming that day. Henry stood at the entrance, adjusting his tie nervously. Whoever this CEO is, he muttered, I just hope they keep me. Cars arrived. People lined up. Then a black car stopped. The door opened. A staff member announced loudly, everyone, please show respect. Henry felt a strange chill. A woman stepped out slowly. She held a familiar old bag. Henry's breath caught. His heart skipped. He leaned forward. No, he whispered. The woman took one step, then another, and as she moved, people bowed, deeply. Henry's knees weakened, because even before she spoke, he knew. And the rain from that terrible night came rushing back into his memory. Henry's eyes filled with tears as the woman stopped in front of him. Her voice rang out calmly. Henry, my son. And in that moment, the guards bowed even lower, leaving Henry standing alone, face to face with the mother he had thrown away. Henry's whole body froze. The lobby felt suddenly too quiet, like the world had stopped breathing. Henry, my son. The voice was calm, not angry, not shaking, calmer than the rain that night. Henry's knees buckled slightly. He grabbed the edge of a desk to steady himself. "Me, mama," he whispered. Around them, no one moved. Every worker, security guards, cleaners, managers, directors, remained bent forward in deep respect. Some bowed their heads, some clasped their hands, some avoided Henry's eyes. Only then did Henry fully understand. This was not a dream. This was not a trick. This was not punishment from people. This was something bigger. The company's head of operations stepped forward and spoke clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "please welcome the owner and chief executive officer of Vicky Crown Industries." He paused, then smiled. "Madam Victoria Williams." The name echoed like thunder. Henry felt the floor disappear under his feet. Owner, CEO, his mother, the same woman he had called a witch, the same woman he had pushed into the rain. Henry's mouth opened, but no words came out. Madam Victoria stood quietly, holding her old bag. She did not smile. She did not frown. She simply stood, small, blind, calm. The staff member gently guided her to the front seat. She sat slowly. Then she spoke again. "Please, you may all sit." Everyone obeyed immediately. Only Henry remained standing, alone, exposed, small. Madam Victoria turned her face in his direction. Even though she could not see him, she knew where he was. "Henry," she said softly, "why are you still standing?" That broke him. Henry fell to his knees, right there in the lobby. Gasps filled the room. "Please," Henry cried, his voice cracking. "Mama, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Madam Victoria did not rush him. She let him cry. She let the room feel his shame. Then she lifted one hand. "Henry," she said calmly, "stand up." Henry struggled to his feet, tears running freely. "I was lied to," he said quickly. "A pastor told me you were the reason my business was failing." He said. Madam Victoria raised her hand again. "Enough." Her voice was gentle but firm. The room fell silent. She turned slightly to the board members. "Please give us a moment." The board nodded quickly. Staff began to leave quietly, whispering. Within minutes, only Madam Victoria, Henry, and 2 security guards remained. The guards stood far away. Madam Victoria sighed. "Henry," she said, "sit." Henry obeyed like a child. "You said a pastor spoke to you," Madam Victoria continued. "Yes," Henry said, wiping his face. "He said you were a witch. He said you were stopping my progress." Madam Victoria nodded slowly. "I see." Henry leaned forward desperately. "Mama, I was afraid. Everything was failing. I panicked." Madam Victoria's lips trembled, slightly, but she kept her voice steady. "Fear makes people cruel," she said, "but fear does not excuse wickedness." Henry bowed his head. "I know," he whispered. "I was wrong." Madam Victoria reached into her bag. Henry stiffened. She pulled out a worn document. "This," she said, tapping it lightly, "is the share certificate I bought 30 years ago." Henry looked up, confused. You invested?" "Yes," she replied, quietly, "with your late father. We planned for a future we might not live to see." Henry swallowed hard. "I never knew." "You never asked," she said gently. Silence filled the room. Then she said something that cut deeper than anger. "When you threw me out, Henry, I did not curse you." Henry's chest tightened. "I prayed." Tears rolled again. "I asked God to protect your heart," she continued, "even if he allowed your hands to break." Henry sobbed openly now. "I am sorry, Mama. Please forgive me." Madam Victoria leaned back. "For forgiveness to come," she said, "truth must be complete." Henry nodded. "Tell me," she said, "did you regret it, even once that night?" Henry hesitated. His silence answered for him. Madam Victoria's face hardened just a little. "I see." She sat quietly for a long moment. Then she spoke words Henry feared. "Henry, I have removed you from your position as general manager." Henry's head snapped up. "What?" "You are relieved of your duty," she said calmly, "effective immediately." Henry felt like he had been punched. "Mama, please." She lifted her hand. "This is not revenge," she said. "This is consequence." Henry slumped. "I understand," he whispered. Madam Victoria nodded. "You will leave this building today." Henry flinched. The memory of rain returned. The door, the shove, the bag flying out. His voice broke. Where will I go? Madame Victoria's fingers tightened around her bag. I once asked you that same question, she said quietly. Henry bowed his head. I deserve it. Madame Victoria stood slowly with help. Then she surprised him. But, she added, I will not leave you on the street. Henry looked up, shocked. You will stay in the staff quarters, she said. You will work. You will learn humility. Henry nodded again and again. Yes, Mamma. Anything. Madame Victoria turned toward the door. As she walked, she stopped. One more thing, Henry. He held his breath. You will publicly apologize, she said, to the staff, to the neighbors, and to the mother you shamed. Henry nodded, tears dripping. Yes. She left the room. Henry sat alone, broken, humbled, alive. That evening, Henry packed his things. As he stepped out of the building, someone called his name. Henry Williams. Henry turned. His blood ran cold. It was Pastor Oho, smiling, confident. Ah, the fake pastor laughed. I heard you lost. Everything. It happens when people don't finish spiritual work. Henry's fists clenched. You lied to me, Henry said quietly. Pastor Oho waved his hand. I only helped you see the truth. Henry stepped closer. You destroyed my life. Pastor Oho smiled wider. Life is spiritual, my son. Henry's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. You told me my mother was a witch, Henry said. Pastor Oho shrugged. Many mothers are. That was the moment something snapped inside Henry. Security guards rushed over as Henry grabbed Pastor Oho by the collar. You used me, Henry shouted. Pastor Oho struggled. Let go. You are finished anyway. The guards pulled them apart. Pastor Oho straightened his robe, laughing. You think your mother saved you, he sneered. Wait, you haven't seen anything yet. Then he leaned close and whispered, There are things even she doesn't know. Henry's heart skipped. What do you mean? But Pastor Oho was already walking away. Henry stood there shaking, and in that moment his phone rang, a private number. He answered slowly. Yes? A serious voice spoke. Good evening, this is the police. We need to ask you some questions. About the night your mother was thrown out. Henry's blood ran cold. As Henry listened, the officer added calmly, There is new evidence, and your mother's name has come up again. Henry closed his eyes, because just when he thought the storm was over, a darker one was beginning. Henry's heart pounded as he held the phone. New evidence, he asked, his voice shaking. What evidence? Sir, the police officer said calmly, we received reports from neighbors and security footage from nearby buildings. We need you to come in for questioning. Henry closed his eyes. The rain, the shove, the words he shouted. All of it came back like a storm. When? Henry asked quietly. Now would be best. The police station smelled of paper, sweat, and strong disinfectant. Henry sat on a hard bench, hands clasped together, head bowed. Across from him sat two officers. One spoke gently. Mr. Henry Williams, this is not an arrest. We just need the truth. Henry nodded. I will tell you everything. And he did. He spoke about the fake pastor, about fear, about anger, about how he believed lies because they sounded like answers. His voice broke when he talked about the rain. I pushed her, he admitted. Not hard, but enough, the officer wrote quietly. Do you regret it? Henry did not hesitate. Every second. After a long silence, the officer leaned back. Your mother has chosen not to press charges, he said. Henry looked up sharply. She knows about this? Yes, the officer replied. She came here herself. Henry's breath caught. She came? The officer nodded. She said punishment without learning is useless. Henry covered his face and cried. Madame Victoria sat in her quiet office later that day. Sunlight touched the curtains. Her old bag rested on the table beside her. The lawyer stood respectfully nearby. Madam, he said, the board supports whatever decision you make. Madame Victoria nodded slowly. Henry must learn, she said, but he must also heal. She paused. Bring him to me tomorrow, at home. The lawyer hesitated. Your mansion. Yes, she replied calmly. A home is where lessons are deepest. Henry arrived the next evening. Not in a fancy car, not with security. He walked. The mansion gate opened slowly. He froze when he saw it. The house was beautiful, quiet, strong. It felt nothing like the mansion he once owned. A guard led him inside. Madame Victoria sat in the living room. Henry knelt immediately. "I am sorry," he said again. Madame Victoria sighed. "Stand up, Henry." He stood. "You will stay here," she said, "but not as a boss. As a son learning." Again. Henry nodded. "Yes, Mamma." "You will work," she continued. "You will eat with the staff. You will listen more than you speak." Henry swallowed. "I accept." She nodded. Then she added softly, "There is something you must know." Henry looked up. Madame Victoria's fingers trembled slightly on her bag. "The shares I bought," she said, "were not the only thing I kept secret." Henry leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "Your father, before he died, trusted me with something else." Henry's heart skipped. "What?" Madame Victoria turned her face away slightly. "A name," she said, "and a promise." Henry's chest tightened. "A name?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she said, "There are people who watched you fall, and are not done yet." Henry frowned. "Who?" Madame Victoria's voice lowered. "The same people who sent that fake pastor." Henry's blood ran cold. "You mean this was planned?" Madame Victoria nodded slowly. "Yes." Henry's hands clenched. "Why?" She paused. "Because of what your father knew." Silence filled the room. Henry's heart raced. "What did my father know?" he asked. Madame Victoria turned back toward him, and for the first time her calm voice carried fear. "He knew the truth about the company that collapsed 30 years ago," she said. Henry stared. "What company?" Madame Victoria opened her bag. She pulled out an old file and placed it gently on the table. "This one," she said. Henry's eyes widened as he read the name. It was a company he had heard of only once, a company surrounded by rumors, a company that ruined powerful men. Henry's voice dropped to a whisper. "Papa was involved in this?" Madame Victoria nodded. "And now, they think you are next." Henry felt cold, very cold. That night Henry could not sleep. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then he heard a sound, a soft knock. At the back door, Henry stood slowly. His heart pounded. He opened the door just a little. No one was there. But on the floor was a small envelope, white, clean. Henry picked it up with shaking hands. Inside was a photo, an old photo, of his father, standing beside men Henry did not recognize. On the back of the photo were 3 words written in red ink. "We never forget." Henry dropped the photo. His breath came fast. Behind him, a calm voice spoke. "Henry." He turned sharply. Madame Victoria stood there, holding her walking stick. "I was hoping you would see it," she said quietly. Henry's voice shook. "Mama, what does this mean?" Madame Victoria stepped closer. "It means," she said, "your punishment is not over." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "And neither is your test." Henry swallowed hard, because he realized then forgiveness had opened a door, but danger had walked in behind it. As thunder rolled outside, Madame Victoria whispered, "Tomorrow, Henry, the truth your father died protecting will come out." And somewhere in the darkness beyond the gate, a car engine started, slow, deliberate, like someone waiting. The car engine outside did not move for a long time. Henry stood by the window, his heart beating fast, listening. Madame Victoria sat calmly on the sofa, her walking stick across her knees, her old bag beside her like always. "Sit down, Henry," she said softly. Henry turned. "Mama, someone is watching us." "I know," she replied. "That is why today must end everything." Henry sat slowly, his hands were cold. When morning came, the mansion filled quietly. The lawyer arrived. 2 senior board members came. A police officer came as well. Henry did not understand why so many people were present. Madame Victoria asked Henry to sit beside her. Then she spoke. 30 years ago, she began, your father worked for a powerful company. That company stole money meant for workers and small investors. Henry listened closely. Your father found out, she continued. He refused to stay silent. The lawyer nodded. He kept records, the lawyer added, documents, names, proof. Henry's eyes widened. So, Papa exposed them. Yes, Madame Victoria said, that company collapsed after the truth came out. Powerful people lost money. Some went to jail. Some escaped. She paused. And they never forgot. Henry's chest tightened. They tried to destroy us, she continued. They failed with your father, then they waited. Henry suddenly understood. The fake pastor, he whispered. Madame Victoria nodded. He was sent to break you, to turn you against your own blood, to make you fall by your own hands. Henry closed his eyes. And I helped them, he said bitterly. You were used, she replied, but you also chose cruelty. That part was yours. Henry nodded slowly. I accept that. The police officer stood. This morning, he said, we arrested Pastor Oho. Henry's head snapped up. You did? Yes, the officer said. Fraud, manipulation, and working with known criminals. The officer continued. The men watching this house last night were also arrested. They were linked to the same group. Henry let out a long breath he did not know he was holding. Madame Victoria folded her hands. It ends today, she said. The lawyer slid a document forward. Madame Victoria has decided to release the remaining documents your husband kept. Everything. Henry looked at her. Mama, that will expose powerful people again. Madame Victoria smiled gently. Truth does not fear power. The documents were handed over, and just like that, the shadows that had followed Henry's life began to disappear. Later that day, Henry stood before the mansion staff, before neighbors, before people who once feared him. He bowed, deeply. I was cruel, he said clearly. I believed lies. I hurt the woman who gave me life. He turned toward his mother. Mama, I am sorry. Madame Victoria stood slowly and walked toward him. She raised him up. I forgive you, she said softly. The words felt like rain on dry ground. Henry cried openly, not from shame this time, from release. Months passed. Henry did not return to power quickly. He worked, he learned, he listened, he ate with staff, he drove himself, he prayed quietly at night. Madame Victoria watched him. One evening she called him to her room. Henry, she said, come and sit. He obeyed. You have changed, she said. Henry nodded. I was blind, Mama, not you. She smiled. I will not always be here, she said gently. One day this company will need a leader again. Henry froze. Mama. She lifted her hand. Not now, she said, but one day, if you continue this way. Hope filled Henry's chest. On a quiet afternoon, rain fell gently. Not angry. Not loud, just calm. Henry stood beside his mother on the balcony. People below greeted her with respect. Some bowed, some waved, some smiled. Henry held an umbrella over her head, carefully, protectively. Madame Victoria touched his hand. Do you remember the rain that night? She asked. Henry nodded. Yes. This rain is different, she said. Henry smiled softly. Yes, Mama. Very different. And for the first time in a long while, the past no longer chased him. Because the truth had spoken. Forgiveness had healed. And the son who once threw his blind mother into the rain now stood beside her. Not as a king, but as a man who finally understood what strength truly meant. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.